might not be as anxiously attached as you think you are. It is a normal human reaction to feel anxiety when a person that you love and care about is pushing you away. Many people go into relationships saying, I felt pretty secure with myself. I felt like I was a securely attached person, but then I dated the avoidant and I came out of it an anxious mess. Well, that's very common. What happens is when the avoidant pushes you away, it triggers underlying anxieties, often anxieties that you didn't even know that you had. Many of these going back to childhood. Maybe you had a parent or caretaker that was inconsistent with their love and affection. And as a kid, you felt like you needed to manage their reactions to earn the love from them. That can cause underlying anxious attachment. But that usually doesn't get triggered. It doesn't get activated in a relationship with somebody who's secure. Most people that have anxious tendencies feel pretty secure and pretty comfortable and confident in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally available. Because the emotionally available partner is consistent. They're affectionate. They like connection. They want love, closeness, just as much as the anxiously attached person does. So there's no trigger for this anxiety. Sure, it can show up sometimes in an argument, but that usually goes away pretty fast. However, when the anxious person or the person with anxious tendencies gets into a relationship with somebody who is severely emotionally unavailable, like an avoidant, that's when the real anxiety gets activated and comes to the surface. Once the anxiety is activated, the way that the anxious person soothes this anxiety is by regaining the closeness. The closeness is the comfort. The problem with the avoidant is that the closeness is the trigger. The trigger because an avoidant does not feel safe being vulnerable or emotionally close. This is because this is a person with low self-esteem and a lack of self-worth. It goes back to their childhood when they were emotionally neglected. Because of this, they feel like they are unlovable, that they are worthless. And their biggest fear is that their partner will figure that out. Figure out that they are unlovable, that they are in fact worthless. So the way they prevent that from happening, the way they prevent their partner from figuring it out, is by creating emotional distance, by pushing this person away, putting up walls. Because if their partner's on the other side of the wall, they can't figure out that the avoidant is in fact worthless and unlovable. The avoidant stays safe by keeping that distance. Now that creates anxiety in the other person that wants closeness. And that really creates the anxious-avoidant trap, where the anxious person wants the closeness, the avoidant runs from it, and the cycle can keep on going, pull, push, pull, push, pull. Now, if you're the person that's feeling this anxiety, but you were likely feeling pretty secure before this dynamic, you can regain your security. You can regain your confidence by having and holding boundaries. Boundaries being your limits of what you will and will not tolerate, what you want, don't want, what you need, don't need, and what you expect and don't expect. Now, it can be difficult to hold boundaries, especially in a relationship with an avoidant, because the underlying fear is if I have and hold a boundary, this person is going to exit the relationship. And that very well may happen. But if they leave the relationship because you hold a boundary or have an expectation, they were never going to meet your expectations and they were never concerned about your boundaries or your feelings. Because they're showing you when they run, when you hold that they're not emotionally investing in you the way that you are in them. And yes, it can be sad, it can hurt to have that loss of the relationship. But you're losing a person that really was not in the relationship with you in the way that you wanted them to be. And definitely not in the relationship in the way that you were with them. And that's how you free yourself up to be available for when an emotionally available partner does come along. So you're not tied up with somebody who is unhealthy and emotionally unavailable. Keep in mind, emotional availability, one of the core aspects of it is the ability to empathize with your partner, to feel their pain and emotions along with them. When the avoidant's running away, they're not empathizing with you. No, they are actually only thinking of themselves and what soothes them, which is the distance. That's because of their walls, they're not really emotionally present in the relationship to begin with. Even when they weren't triggered, it was ultimately about them due to those insecurities and walls. Your boundaries are your sword and shield. They will protect you from going down that path to endless anxiety. Yes, it is normal to feel anxious in a relationship with an avoidant, absolutely. And it can absolutely trigger underlying anxious attachment. But you can regain that sense of security and that secure attachment and truly become that secure attacher by having and holding boundaries. And no, you don't have to be confrontational in your boundaries. You're just expressing what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Like, for example, if the avoidant is not consistently communicating with you, hey, I've noticed that there's been inconsistent communication. Communication is very important to me. And while I don't need check-ins every hour, I do like to feel that communication to me, with me, is important to my partner as well. And consistent communication, not disappearing for days, is very important to me. And this distancing, this gap of communication doesn't work for me. Now, that's my expectations, that's what I need. If that doesn't work for you, okay, but this is what works for me. You can express this stuff in non-confrontational ways by focusing on how you feel about it. But doing so will really regain your sense of security. It'll help you stay grounded because you're taking care of your emotional needs. You're taking care of yourself. You're holding those boundaries, sending yourself the message that your feelings, your wants, your needs do in fact matter, because they do. But when you're not holding boundaries, you're telling yourself that your feelings don't matter, that you can't rely on yourself, and it pushes you further into anxiousness. So don't beat yourself up. It's normal to feel anxiety in a relationship with somebody who's avoidant, but you do have the ability to choose more anxiety or less. Make the healthy choice, hold boundaries, take care of yourself.